Hi, my name is Bill Calabrese. I'm former mayor of South Orange, or village president of South Orange, New Jersey. I came to South Orange in 1975 with my wife. We were married in 1973, and she knew my dream was to open up my own pharmacy. I was 25 and she was 24, and we found this little store in South Orange. We decided that's where we're going to start our dream, and we opened up a pharmacy called the Prescription Counter. The people in South Orange were very kind to me and my wife, and quickly we became successful. But there was always something that bothered me. It was the feeling in South Orange that there was something wrong and people really didn't want to live there anymore. And South Orange was becoming a community of flight rather than a community of destination. And in the late 80s, Mr. Bert Spiota came to see me one day in the pharmacy because they wanted to build a senior citizen building on South Orange Avenue. And there was a lot of opposition because what was going to happen in the minds of a lot of the residents was that this building would only bring in people that weren't deserving to live in South Orange. There was something wrong with the people who were going to live in this senior building. So he asked me if I would like to run for a trustee on his ticket. I really wanted to give back to the community. I wanted to help the people who helped us so much to become successful in our business. So I told Bert, yes, I would do it. I used to come out to my car. I would have flat tires. My car would always get scratched up, keyed, and everything else. And ultimately, the election took place. And the night of the election, I was told that I lost the election, and the opposition party to the building was the winner. And a half hour later, I got a phone call saying that somebody turned in the wrong numbers, and actually that I did win my portion of the election, but everybody else on the ticket lost. And ultimately, the building got built, and that was my first foray into politics in South Orange, and I'm very proud of that project because it took a lot of work and it took a lot of dedication by the people who were on that board with me to get that project done. After that project, the gentleman who was elected village president at the time, who was the leader of the opposition, his name was Ross, and the pressure on him became so bad that ultimately he had a stroke. And because of the stroke, he had a policy in place where all the trustees on the board took turns becoming like the village president while he was awake. I actually became the village president. That's why a lot of times I said for 20 years I was a village president, where I was only elected 16. After that, I got elected 4 consecutive terms to village president. And basically the thrust of my administrations was to bring back South Orange to the prominence it once had. You know, like I said earlier, the South Orange was a community of flight. Nobody wanted to live in South Orange. The question to me all the time was, why do you want to live in South Orange where you can live any place you want? And I used to tell them, because I love the community and I love the people. If it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be in the position I was. So I dedicated, my wife and I dedicated our lives to make South Orange a place that people really wanted to live, a place that was truly America. I hate to say it this way. Sometimes I tell people I get too emotional over it, but I am very patriotic. I wanted South Orange to exhibit all the principles that made this country great. No matter what religion, creed, persuasion, you were welcome in South Orange, and we were going to make life happy and healthy for you in South Orange. One night there was a meeting, and they told me we were going to have some guest speakers coming to see us who were from a group called the Coalition on Race. And I was supposed to stay away from them, but that was my advice, because it was only going to be bad and troublesome for South Orange, some of the ideas that they had. And basically they convinced Maplewood at the time, they were telling me, to go along with this idea that they were going to integrate South Orange to some extent. So I said, okay, good, I want to hear them. So they came that night, and there was a group of individuals, black and white people, and every word that came out of their mouth was something that was refreshing and something that I really wanted to hear. And I worked with them very hard, and I convinced the board of trustees of South Orange this is the direction we had to go, and that's what we did. If you want to really desegregate, or if you really want to have a community that works, you have to have people living in all neighborhoods, not just simply this side of town or that side of town. This is the white side of town, this is the black side of town. No, everybody has a right to live in any particular community part that they want to, as long as they can afford it. And because of this, we were very successful, and housing values increased in South Orange, and the town became more welcoming in all neighborhoods, and I saw such a change in the community. The ShopRite that we had in South Orange was a drawing card during the 50s and 60s. People moved to South Orange because we had a beautiful ShopRite. It was innovative. It was well customer service supermarket. And people who retired out of Newark and other communities, East Orange, they moved to South Orange because they wanted to have the ambience of the community, and they had the most beautiful supermarket they could walk to and shop. But what happened during the course of the time, as South Orange started to deteriorate, the supermarket certainly deteriorated. And that became a bone of contention that we needed a new supermarket because ShopRite basically abandoned it. We bought it over, and we had control as the Village of South Orange over who we were going to put in there. And at one time, we had, in the beginning, we had a wonderful offer from a very major chain, a very prestigious chain, to come into South Orange. And we worked with them for at least a year. And one day they called up and they said, "Okay, Mr. Calabrese, we want to talk to you. We're going to tell you our proposal. We want the property. Everything looks good." So I said, "Okay." We had a certain date set up, and we met. And as soon as I sat down, they asked for a piece of paper, and they put a piece of paper on the table. And they drew a pie. And then they went Newark, East Orange, Orange, Irvington, Maplewood, South Orange. And then they looked me in the eye and they said, "We don't like your demographics. We changed our mind. We don't want to come to South Orange with our supermarket." And then they got up and they left. So now we went through the process and we started to look again, which took about another year. And we had quite reputable supermarkets come to see us too. And all of a sudden we get a call from this particular supermarket again. And they said, "Ms. Calabrese, we changed our mind. We decided we do want to come to South Orange." This time they came, we sat down. This time I said to the administrator, "Let me have a big piece of paper." And they gave me the paper. I drew the circle on the paper. I said, "Newark, East Orange, Irvington, Orange, we don't want to do business with you." Certainly didn't want to do business with people that didn't have the same philosophy as I did, that everybody was going to be welcome into that supermarket and that they only wanted a certain type of clientele. And we got lucky. We found a resident of South Orange who came with a proposition that he would bring in this beautiful private supermarket as long as we gave him the rest of the parcel of land to build a condominium project. And that was the Eden Garden of Eden supermarket. Seton Hall and New Jersey Transit were my first partners to get this town, moving. And the history of South Orange is they grew around the train. Every time the train improved, more people moved to South Orange because we were one of the easy commutes out of New York City. So every time we improved, more people came here. And the mistakes that East Orange and Orange made was when they were growing, instead of maintaining the community that they had, they started to build apartments. And ultimately, it led to their downfall. Because once the people moved out, once they started to have trouble, then they were loaded with all these apartments. So if you overbuild with units like that, where there's no foundation in the community, where you're basically just a renter, you could just pick up and move. You look at East Orange and Orange, no matter what they do, they still got the problems with all those apartments. And now South Orange is thinking in the same terms like they did back in the 40s and 50s and building too many apartments. And ultimately, when the people can't afford the rents, or they don't want to afford the rents, or if the town is harder to get to New York, or there's harder to get on a train, and all these things are very, variable, sooner or later, they're going to leave. So that's basically the main thrust to where I think that they're making a mistake today. Soapback is a very interesting story. Very interesting. Because I always needed a centerpiece, like I said. To me, I wanted to make South Orange a place where people would always come, always enjoy the life forces that was brought to the community, and you needed something that was based on everybody would enjoy it. Everybody enjoys the arts, and you needed some place to house this. I spoke in Washington, D.C., 1,000 people in the room. And when it was all done, I gave my talk about South Orange. I told about the history and some of the things about the direction we were trying to go. They had questions and answers. For an hour and a half, I was the only one that was answering questions because the whole audience, wherever they came from in the United States, was interested in the redevelopment of a community. I think she was from someplace in the Midwest, Kansas City or something like that. And she raised her hand. I said, "Okay, next question." And she goes to me, "Can you tell me more about the Performing Arts Center?" And I looked at her and I said, "Performing Arts Center? You mean the one in Newark, New Jersey?" She goes, No. The one you're building in South Orange. Tell me more about it. Then I looked at her and I said, "Do you mind if I steal that?" She goes, "No, please do." And that's how we got the name South Orange Performing Arts Center. When they started the movement seriously on the equal rights for gay couples, that was one of the most wonderful things that ever happened in New Jersey and in this country. And I can still remember doing the first one. We opened the village hall at 12 o'clock at night to do the first civil ceremonies. And basically, there's nothing wrong with the civil ceremonies. It was giving people the rights to be American, the rights to freedom, the rights to enjoy themselves, the right for happiness. That's what it really was. And anybody who was against it, I could never even understand what they were talking about. In fact, I think it should be expanded. There's people that live together as a couple. Like you might have two aunts that live together. You have two uncles that live together. You have people that live together because that's the way they have to survive. They should be able to enjoy the same benefits of a married couple if they live together. I want to touch base on something else too. It was 9/11. 9/11 occurred and the country was shocked. It was like everybody was lost. We have at least 3 people from South Orange that died in the building. We have to do something. So I said, okay, let's put something together. We'll have a ceremony where we're going to have it. And we organized in one day a ceremony in the New Jersey Transit parking lot next to the train station. And they wanted to know how I wanted to handle it. And I said, well, I want a religious spokesman from every religion that we could find in Essex County, and I want them all to speak. I want you to invite a Muslim, a Christian, a Baptist, a Jewish, whatever, every denomination. Really, I want them to all to come and speak. Thousands upon thousands of people came. I think one person estimated at 28,000 people. The best was the imam from the Muslim faith, because everybody in that audience hated him. And he spoke so eloquently that you had to respect him and the people. And like I said, there were certain times in those 20 years that I'll never forget. And that was one of those nights. And I think it brought South Orange closer together too at that night. When I first got elected village president officially in 1991, the reputation was that South Orange and Seton Hall were at odds. And Seton Hall at the time, I believe, was contemplating moving to a different location. And in my mind, that was not going to happen, because if you want to rebuild this community, Seton Hall is a pillar of South Orange, a representative of South Orange, and a very prestigious institution to have in South Orange. So Seton Hall at the time brought in a new president for the university. His name was Father Peterson. And I imagine Father Peterson was told to be careful with me, that I was going to be fighting Seton Hall tooth and nail on a lot of issues, because they wanted to grow or to expand, otherwise they had to move. And my wife said to me, Bill, why don't you invite him up for dinner? So I said, okay, Mary Jean, we'll invite him up to dinner. By the time he left, he realized he had a friend. And that's how we moved in the direction of making Seton Hall change from basically a commuter college to a residential university. We worked very diligently with Seton Hall, building their buildings, increasing the size of the campus, bringing more resident students to the campus. Anything Seton Hall needed, I would give them. They came to the planning board, tell me what you need, we'll make sure that it works. And during that period of time, I believe they built a couple of residence halls, they built Jubilee Hall, they built the library. It was a tremendous growth spurt at Seton Hall, and basically changed them from that community university to the university you see today. It's hard to imagine all those things could be accomplished in, like I said, it was basically 16 years, but a lot was accomplished. Most towns can't build a library in 16 years, let alone all the things that happened in South Orange Zone, those particular. But I didn't want to hurt anybody's business, so we made sure all this major construction work was done without interfering with people's businesses and livelihood. You know, you have to have a dream, where you're going in life, what you want to do. And I picture South Orange not only being a wonderful place for people of all colors and all religions to live, but also a place that when you say, I live in South Orange, people say, boy, what a wonderful community that is. You don't have to be the toughest, the smartest, but you lead by ability and example. And I gave the example that if you follow me, I'm going to take care of you and I'm going to protect you. And that's the way I developed my whole life. To this day, if I tell people you're my family or you're part of me because now I know you, you know I'm going to protect you no matter what. And that's what leadership is all about. You lead by example. You try to show people the right way to do things, and you don't quit on your friends, and you're loyal. You're supposed to do what's right for the other person, not necessarily what's right for you, but what's right for the people, if they're right, as long as they're not wrong, but you're supposed to be helping them. When you vote for somebody, you got to really believe that they're going to do the right thing. That's the most important thing when you vote. Party doesn't make any difference. You have to believe that who you're voting for is going to put your concerns over his own, which I find hard. In politics, it's very difficult to find politicians that are willing to do something for you without thinking of themselves first. People, they get these offices and everything else, but the most important concern to them is, how do I stay there? Not necessarily, how do I benefit the people who I represent, but how do I stay there? And that's wrong. A person gets elected simply because he's a Republican in a Republican area or he's a Democrat in a Democratic area. Most people don't even know who's their elected official. They just vote Democrat or Republican. So if you get rid of, let's say, this Republican because you don't like what he does and you think he's a bad person, they're only going to replace him with another Republican. And the same principles and same ideas are going to be there. Likewise, if you're a Democrat. If you're a Democrat in Essex County, it's hard to lose an election. But if you're not on the line, there's going to be another guy that's doing the same thing. You really don't have a choice. So you got the philosophies of both parties. And I think what they have to do is they have to change voting districts. So almost every person that gets elected has to be in a fair election where a Republican or Democrat can get elected. But today, nobody wants to compromise. That's what I'm saying. Nobody wants to do this. It's one way or the other way. Obama's, like I said, the elections and all stuff is a great example. Mr. Obama comes in office, he has great high hopes, and then he has a Congress that stops him every place he goes, and then they criticize him because he can't get anything done. Now remember, I'm a Republican. I'm saying this because I'm a fair person. I can see what's happening. Same idea with Mr. Trump. I have no idea what he's going to do, but give him a chance and work with him. If he's wrong, tell him he's wrong and say, okay, we'll help you, but this is what you got to do. You got to add this to it, or you got to add that to it, and come out with something, a compromise that makes everybody whole. Running in and out of the drugstore. Let's see. Look, how many cars you see? You see one car. No, there's no businesses. Look. Customer did that. Yeah. So this is the way Sloane Street looks today. You can see it's a marked improvement over 1994. Yeah. And like I said, somebody ought to get to the New York Times and say South Orange would like a retraction, saying that we can never rebuild this town. So actually, if you look around, you can see it's been rebuilt and it's been rebuilt wonderfully.